Well, welcome in to My Dogs Are Barking on MPW Digital, presented by Heath Riles Barbecue. And man, we have such a great episode for you today as Northern Illinois head coach Thomas Hammock stops by to talk Mississippi State and Northern Illinois. Incredibly privileged that Coach Hammock would give me, of all people, some of his time. Really personable guy. You can see why players enjoy playing for him and why, last year when Northern Illinois upset Notre Dame, that post-game press conference was so good. And it's one of the things that makes college football so great is the humanity of it all, of the David beating the Goliath kind of thing, and getting to see the emotion because of all the hard work they put in. And so I really enjoy this interview. I hope you will as well. We ask him about the Cowbells. We ask him about what it's like to play in that environment, and also kind of some of the things that kind of stuck out thus far. He said they've already gone through some of their game planning for Mississippi State, so we will be able to take a look at that on this episode of My Dogs Pod, presented by Heath Riles Barbecue. And speaking of Heath Riles Barbecue, I want to let you know that each and every episode is brought to you by them. They're our presenting sponsor. Heath Riles is home to award-winning rubs, seasonings, glazes, sauces, and marinades created by 2025 Memphis and May Grand Champion Heath Riles. 81-time Grand Champion Heath Riles, that is. And his products are trusted by pit masters all over. Look, you can get his products at over 15,000 stores nationwide, or just go to heathrilesbarbecue.com and put in promo code DAWGS10, DAWGS 10, for phenomenal rubs. Put this on some steak this week and actually threw it on the Blackstone, and it was phenomenal. And I'm a big fella. You can trust my judgment. Always thankful for Heath for being the presenting sponsor of our show. Also, we want to thank our caffeine sponsor of our show, Arpa's. Arpa's in the heart of the Cotton District in Starkville. Arpa's understands that great food and drinks are best enjoyed in the company of friends and loved ones. And in the heart of the Cotton District, in the best part of Starkville, is Arpa's. So if you're looking for a great cup of coffee, you're looking for a great Venezuelan meal, Arpa's is the spot to go. Man, it's such a good place to hang out. To me, there's nothing like Arpa's in the evening. Arpa's in the evening. There's something to that. That has a nice ring to it. But just the sunset and being in the Cotton District itself with a great cup of coffee is wonderful. And hey, we'll get you 15% off each and every time you're at Arpa's by mentioning that you love the My Dogs Pod. 15% off discount. Jose and his family will take care of you for sure. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with head coach of Northern Illinois, Thomas Hammock. Special edition of My Dogs Pod. We have the absolute pleasure of getting to talk to head coach of Northern Illinois, Thomas Hammock. And coach, last season, so many people got to know you and also got to know your program on the national stage with the upset over Notre Dame. And from that moment, myself, but also so many other people just started rooting for you guys, rooting for your team, even if they weren't from, Illinois or kind of that central part of the country. And with all those people, rooting for you last season, you have a new team now, of course, and a lot of new challenges and things to be excited about. But can you take us to that victory over Notre Dame, and what did that mean to you guys and kind of the program moving forward?
No, obviously that was a huge day for the program. This program has been known for, playing opponents of that caliber and winning those type of games. We have a thing called the Boneyard victories that started a long time ago with Coach Novak, and we try to continue that tradition. And to go out there and the way our kids played, how hard they played, how physical they played, gave us an excellent chance to be in position to win that game. And we believed, we certainly thought that, if it got into the fourth quarter, we have the mental and physical toughness to finish. And I was so proud of the coaches and the players for getting the job done.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, that's something that those guys are going to remember for the rest of their lives, and you as well. But that is certainly an element of the past. But what about now? What would you say are some of the differences between last year's team at this time and this year's team, kind of going forward, where you are at this point in the offseason?
Well, I think last year's team, we had a bunch of seniors, a bunch of guys that played a lot of football for us in the program. Every year you look at the strengths and weaknesses of that particular team. And so last year we were more defensive dominated. Offensively, we were still trying to find our way. The one thing I like about this team is a lot more balance. We feel like we can be good in offense, defense, and special teams. And last year for special teams was an Achilles heel for us as far as the consistency needed And we understand that's an important third of the game. So from a total team standpoint, I feel very, very good about our complete team. Obviously, we may play a little bit different style, but I think holistically, I love where these guys are going. I love the direction that they're heading. And now it's about getting to training camp, making sure we're healthy and very competitive throughout.
With so many different opponents in the upcoming season, we're our show kind of focuses around the SEC and Mississippi State. But that's week 4. I mean, you guys have several other games before then, but thus far, what do you make of the matchup? And kind of guess, how do you prepare for some of those games that are a couple weeks into the season, as opposed to the first game August 31st?
Well, as a staff, we actually broke down Mississippi State 2 weeks ago, and the one thing that stuck out to me from a breakdown standpoint is how many new players they have in the program, and the size. When I look at matchups of this caliber, you always look at the offensive line and defensive line. And when I saw the offensive line and defensive line sizes, we know it's going to be a tremendous challenge. They got the quarterback coming back that got injured last year. So they have some weapons on their team. And like I said, we break down our first 4 opponents during the summer. 2 weeks ago, we did Mississippi State and was really impressed of the job that Coach Lippier has done, rebuilding his roster. Obviously, he took over a program, needed to, build a culture and then implement his schemes. But it's very obvious and evident, what type of team he wants to build. He wants to build a team from inside out with the ability to get speed and space on the perimeter. And you see that throughout the roster.
One of the things you mentioned there was talking about building culture. And I'm assuming this is something that every coach is facing right now. How do you build a culture? Which I guess you build a culture one way or the other. It's either a bad culture or a good culture. But how do you build a good culture with the amount of new players that come in each year with the portal, with the high school, with JUCO? I mean, how is it that you can do that with the amount of new faces you have coming in each year?
I think the number one thing is you have to stay consistent with what you believe and how you expect things to be done. And so the standards and expectations don't change. And as long as you can stay consistent, people will walk into your program and it becomes very, very obvious what's important to that program. And so we've had a bunch of new players coming into our program in January, and they got indoctrinated very, very quickly because we were very consistent in what we expect, how we expect it to be done, and the standards that they need to be done with. And then we had freshmen come in 2 weeks ago, and it just falls in line from a systematic approach because our older guys are leading by example. Our coaches are being extremely consistent on what they ask for. And those guys understand if you don't do things the way that we expect them to be done, you're going to have a hard time playing here. And I think every young man wants to play in college football. And so you have to lay out the things that allow them to play, and they have to follow those procedures and standards. And if they do that, then give them an opportunity to show what they can do.
Obviously, you have a lot of good and talented players on the field, guys you can rely on there. But is there a guy that maybe folks need to know about that you guys kind of look at as almost the heart and soul? That, I guess, whenever you eventually rest your head on a pillow at night, right? There might be some late nights where maybe you never rest your head on some nights. That this is a guy I don't have to worry about, and a guy that can lead other people and other young men. That just as coaches that you go, this is a guy I can put my trust in.
Yeah, I think, the number one guy that pops in my mind is Roy Williams. Obviously, from a size standpoint, he fits all the criteria of what you want from a college, defensive end. But from a maturity standpoint, here's a young man that came into our program, has developed mentally and physically. And now when you go out to practice, he's the guy that you hear. And all the players on our team respect him. He's an NFL talent. He had a lot of opportunities to look at different things from a transfer portal situation. But he stayed loyal to the people that were committed to him from the beginning. We recruited him as a sophomore in high school. He really needed to improve his grades and do some different things to get himself in order to be a college student athlete. He took those steps, was a 4.0 student his senior year, and has been above 3.0 since he's been here in our program. So I think he appreciates all the hard work that we put into him, and he rewarded that appreciation with, staying with our program, even though he had a lot of money on the table.
Two more quick questions, Coach. I know there's got to be so much stress when it comes to your job, but when you think back of kind of the reason you do what you do, man, what is your favorite part of coaching?
Yeah, my favorite part is dealing with the players. And it's unfortunate the way college football has transitioned to be more transactional. The relationship piece is, to me, what keeps me going. When you see a young man walk in your program, he's 17, 18 years old, and then to see him leave and the progress that he made in that time, whether it be academically, athletically, socially, to becoming a man and being a productive member of society. That's why I still do it. And I love to see that growth with young people. And it's unfortunate that I think in this day and age, there's a lot of coaches now in this profession that I'm not sure if they like people, which is hard to explain. But I love people. I love being around young people and watching them grow and develop and reach their potential. And to me, that's why you do it. That's why I've always done it. It was never about, how much money can you make? It was always about, hey, how much better can you make somebody else? And I was very appreciative for the coaches that had the opportunity to coach me in college and wanted to do the same thing for other young men in our program.
That's wonderful, Coach. And final question, we talked a little bit about Mississippi State. You guys are coming to Starkville, so that means there's Cowbells.
Yes.
Any thoughts about the Cowbells? Like, do you do anything to prepare, like at this point or whenever the season comes along? Like, any thoughts on what you'll do to combat that noise?
Well, I watched the Egg Bowl for a long time, and so I understand that rivalry is always, on Thanksgiving, and so to see the atmosphere, obviously SEC football is, some of the best football that's being played, but there's nothing that can prepare you for that type of atmosphere. The thing you try to do is bring in crowd noise during the week and get your kids to focus. But once you get in that environment, the best way to quiet the crowd is to play well. And that's going to be our message. I mean, the better we play, the quieter they'll be. And so for us, we're going to focus on us. We're not going to focus on external factors and do the best we can to play as well as we can play on that Saturday.
Man, we sure do appreciate Coach Hammock for stopping by. And, there's going to be a big season for Mississippi State and Jeff Levy. And, listen, if Jeff Levy is able to win, above his projected win total, Mississippi State's able to somehow get up and win a bowl game, they're going to be in a good spot, and Jeff Levy might even be able to earn an extension. And in fact, through the extension, he might get a raise, and through that, he might even end up becoming, dare I say, rich. But what does it mean to be rich? Maybe it's less about reaching a magic number, more about discovering the magic in life. Skip Langley is your Batesville, Mississippi, Edward Jones financial advisor, serving clients in the area and across the state. Count on him for financial strategies that can help you support a life you love, because the key to being rich is knowing what counts. So contact him today at 662-563-9843, and together you can find your rich. Edward Jones, member SIPC. We'll be right back after these messages from MPW Digital to talk about Northern Illinois and Mississippi State and our way too early preview.
All MPW Digital podcasts are brought to you by our friends at Parish Brewing Company, located in the heart of Cajun country in Broussard, Louisiana. Parish Brewing Company's simple goal is to make awesome craft brewed beer, and they do it remarkably well. The doctor is introducing their new go-to IPA, Dr. Juice. It's a highly crushable juice bomb, dry hopped with a blend of their favorite hand-selected hops from the Yakima Valley in Washington. Dr. Juice's drinkability is sneaky good, considering it clocks in at 6% ABV. The pour glows a rich cantaloupe hue with a thick frosted haze, soft mouthfeel, an aroma and taste that's full of passion fruit, papaya, and blood orange, making it drink like a glass of freshly squeezed juice. They also have Ghost in the Machine. It's a double IPA brewed with obscene quantities of hand-selected Citra hops from Yakima Valley. Expect pungent grapefruit flavors and aromas, tropical fruit, less harsh bitterness than most IPAs. Again, it's Parish Brewing Company. Wherever you get your beer, check out Parish. Make sure that you look for them, because any beer that you get from Parish is going to be absolutely outstanding. Thank you from MPW Digital. We're brought to you by Easy Hemp Company. Easy is a hemp-infused sparkling water. It's a guilt-free alcohol alternative, a natural way to relax and unwind. It's all natural. Made with real fruit, no added sugar, low calories, gluten-free. One 12-ounce can of Easy has 3 milligrams of THC. With Easy, it's easy to avoid the gummy scare and control your experience. So change the can, not the ritual. It's easy. Visit EasyHempCo.com to view the Easy Finder to find Easy near you. Easy is Farm Bill compliant with hemp derived from THC, CBD extracts. Easy is for people 21 and older. Enjoy responsibly.
Well, welcome back to My Dogs Pod, presented by MPW Digital. Pardon me, on MPW Digital, presented by Heath Riles Barbecue. And what a great interview with Coach Hammock, man! Really, really incredible that he'd give us some of his time. And came away with what a lot of other people have said about him, and that is, man, he is a guy that players love to play for and fans love to root for. And so excited for Northern Illinois to come to Starkville. That'd be the week 4 game. And I know like the week 0 thing has messed me all up. So like, is it week 4? Is it, week 3? Who cares? But it's kind of interesting. Mississippi State is actually bringing several players from that Northern Illinois team to Mississippi State, the players from last year. So Nevaeh Sanders is the edge rusher that ended up transferring in December to Mississippi State. Cam Thompson is the wide receiver, kind of playing that slot, 6 feet, 1'8", 198. And then Rasheem Thomas, kind of the kind of sack specialist coming from Northern Illinois to Mississippi State. And so it's kind of funny, several players from that team, from last year's successful team who went 8-5, will be coming to Starkville to be a part of the Bulldogs this season. And so that'll be kind of different. But Coach even mentioned, like, this is kind of a team that he has this season that he's thinking is going to be a little bit more kind of overall complete. And as a complete team is the goal. And look, for Mississippi State, it's kind of funny, like any other year with respect to Northern Illinois, I think State fans would be a little bit, say this is 3 years ago, I think State fans wouldn't really be thinking as often about this. But, the two combining factors of Mississippi State having such a horrendous season last year, and then coming off of Northern Illinois' season last year, you kind of put those two together and you go, oh no, if you're a Bulldog fan. And look, after last season's loss against Toledo, there's really nothing that's, easy. But Northern Illinois is a very well-coached team, and they showed that. And they showed that last season, winning games that they, quote-unquote, should not. It's kind of funny. After last season, they were 2-0 after the Notre Dame game, and then it was like they had two kind of letdown games. Like they lose in overtime the next week against Buffalo. And in their loss against Buffalo, again, in overtime, really close, like had the game won, end up losing. Then they go on the road at NC State and lose by 7. I mean, they played them close. Then they lose to Toledo by 6. Then they lose to Ball State by 2. And their biggest loss of the season was to Miami of Ohio by 9. And so, by 11. So, I mean, they play every single game, even the games they lost, they played each team really, really close. And they were fantastic. And they ended up winning the famous Idaho Potato Bowl against Fresno State in double overtime, 28-20. And so there's a lot of good things going forward for this Northern Illinois team. A lot of a lot of momentum going forward. Their quarterback last year, Ethan Hampton, did a lot of really good things. 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions overall. And last season was kind of his season where he played the most. But 2022, he actually played a good bit, but he turned the ball over a little bit too much. And so but he's coming into I believe this would be his final year this year. But they have several really, really talented players going into this season. Last year, Antonio Brown Antonio Brown had 4 really good seasons in Northern Illinois. Antonio Brown, almost a 1,300-yard season in 2023. And again, there's several good players. And I know I was thinking about this week, is there a particular team, like a particular team that or guy in Northern Illinois history that you remember? And I do that. I like to do that with some of those teams every once in a while. And the guy that immediately comes to my mind is Jordan Lynch. I think about Jordan Lynch in the quarterback number 6, and was like a scrambling quarterback. And I remember, especially like if you remember playing uh, on the like the NCAA 14 game, like he was fantastic. He was so fun to play with. But after that, I was like, I mean, I feel like there's a couple of guys that I'm not remembering, from there. But again, several players on this team that should be able to make an impact. Miles Thompson, the cornerback, transferred in from Texas Tech, is going to be playing in Northern Illinois this year. And look, they had several players leave via the portal. But they did also get several players in. But honestly, Coach kind of leaned on high school a good bit. Alvin Gully's another player from Yale, the defensive lineman that transferred in this season. And again, there's a certain level of commitment to high school players that Northern Illinois has had. I mean, they brought in this past season. Goodness. Am I right? Yeah, we have 20 high school players, so 20 high school freshmen coming in this year. Kind of the star of the class, at least in my eyes, is probably Jack Murray. Jack Murray is the linebacker, 6'3", 225, committed to them. That coming in for this, not this upcoming year, but the year after that, for 2026. Looking at the 2025 class of the players that are already enrolled, I think that, again, there's several good players that are there. I think the player that stands out the most is James Finley. According to On3, he's actually a 4-star, 24/7 has him as a 4-star. James Finley's a safety, 6 foot, 175. He's a guy that, as a true freshman, could see some significant playing time. Lazaro Rogers, a running back, 5'10", 190. But I think Finley is going to be the main guy that if you're a State fan, you might be able to see from the get-go. There might be some other players that kind of come on and to be established, but there's nothing no one else that kind of popped out when I was initially looking at their lineup of people that they had incoming. Another guy who's, again, technically a freshman is Miles Thompson, but he'd be I guess redshirt freshman. The guy transferred in from Texas Tech. Only brought in 3 transfer portal players from last season. So anyway, that there's a brief kind of overview of Northern Illinois. And I think when you look at this game where we are here in July, Northern Illinois knows how to take down a team that on paper is bigger and faster and more talented than they are. I mean, they did against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, I remember after Notre Dame lost that game, several people saying, friends saying, look, they lost it because they're not going to be a good team this year. And that was not the case at all. Made a run in the college football playoff. Obviously a really good team. And for Northern Illinois, they know how to take those teams down. So I would just say if Northern Illinois was to win this game, it would be in part due to the fact that they know how to take down a team that they know how to out scheme and outwork a team that's better than them on paper. Mississippi State, I think, could be able to win this game by coming out with some shots early. It's kind of like that. Everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the mouth. Mike Tyson quote. If Mississippi State can hit early on, some of these teams that are not at the same kind of SEC type caliber might not be able to respond as well. Even in but Northern Illinois' defense played very well last season. So I mean, it's a new team. So who's to say how things will go this year? Especially with State having 2 of their better pass rushers from last season coming this way. So, but I want to know from you, man, what would you say is the reason if Northern Illinois was to win this game? What is the reason that it would be? If Mississippi State's to win this game, what's the reason Mississippi State wins this game? And Coach mentioned Blake Shapen coming back. Blake Shapen has a lot of experience. I think that the running game for Mississippi State is what would win this game for them. I don't know if Coach Levy's going to take some shots over the top immediately, but if Fluff Bothwell and Davon Booth are able to be consistent, like the size of the offensive line for Mississippi State, I think can get a push enough to make an impact. But you have to score quick. If you keep a team like Northern Illinois around, they have no problem with making you pay for it. So State's going to have to work really, really quick to make an impact. But really excited about that. Man, excited for Northern Illinois to come to Starkville, and excited for the season to start. I'm so pumped, man. We're sitting here in July, and in many ways we're just begging for content. But for Mississippi State football wise, right now it's just kind of a wait and see. We'll be able to learn some more stuff at Media Days with Jeff Lebby, which My Dogs Pod is credentialed for. So we will cover SEC Media Days there in Atlanta and cover Coach Lebby. Very thankful for that. I mentioned that on last week's podcast, but ever since we got credentialed, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who listens. And I look forward to learning more about this Northern Illinois team, because admittedly, like there's still so much to learn. But also when you coming off from an off season into a new season, like sometimes there's not a ton of things to, you don't know what the team's going to look like. And he even mentioned that this year's team's going to look different than last year's team. So as always, we thank you guys so much for listening to My Dogs Pod on MPW Digital, presented by Heath Riles Barbecue. We'll holler at you next time.